Hello everybody, this is Robin Michael again at the Benedetti Sessions, and this is our week 2 tutorial on the Vaughan-Williams Thomas Tallis Fantasia, our creative session looking at the improvisation element that we're doing in this piece. Now, I hope you've all seen the follow-up video that I did after our Facebook live session, where I just once again went over the two modes that we're using, the two scales that we're using for our improvisation. In fact, the two modes, they come from the same scale, which is G major. Let's just all play a nice G major scale. If you're warming up, this is first thing in the morning for you. Let's play our... Remember, we were just really investing lots of sort of focus in the intervals between each note, because our first mode that we're playing starts on E, so we're taking the notes of G major, and we're playing our scale, our E minor is an E Aeolian mode, and then the second one is our G major scale, but going from D to D. So giving us our D dominant, our D7 if you like. Now, the thing about improvising is that we need to develop a real fluency if we want to realize what is happening creatively in our heads, if you like, in the moment. I always think to what Miles Davis said about the ideal state to be in when you improvise. And he said that the ideal state is to think of something to play and don't play it. And what comes out is fresh. Now, I can tell you that happens maybe once every goodness knows how many hundreds of times you do something. And the rest of the time, we rely on all the practice that we do, the fluency that we build up, technical fluency. And it's the same any form of music. Any musician will tell you, talk to Nikki about playing the Tchaikovsky concerto. It's actually all those hours you spend practicing. You might have one moment every goodness knows how many concerts where just everything falls into place and it's just the easiest thing, and the rest of the time it's all the work you've done as well as the inspiration, all the thought that you've put into it. So we're going to do that work now at a practical level, and what I wanted to focus on is the fact that as classical musicians we're always in the habit of practicing scales from the root to the root. So when we play, for instance, late 18th century classical concertos, if we have scale passages, they normally go from the root to the root. And we practice our scales like that every morning. We will warm up like that, where it's very much in that way of, we sort of think about the fingering and the blocks of fingering in that way. But the thing is, to improvise, we need to free ourselves from that slight sort of I use the word confinement in this period of the pandemic that we're in. I shouldn't use words like confinement, but it is a sort of confinement, the way we practice scales sometimes. So I want to help us break out of that. And we're going to do it with our two scales, and we're going to do it in two different ways, because I do want to practice things in a linear way, in other words, joining notes in steps up like that. But I also want to show you how we can build up things using larger intervals and getting fluency with arpeggios, and how that can help us. And again, all this comes together, and hopefully what you'll see is once your fluency grows, you can construct your musical, your improvisation, or let's call it a narrative, because this is like speaking, this is like constructing a sentence when we improvise. You can do that with the absolute sort of ease with which you desire. The first thing we're going to do is take our two modes, and yes, let's just play them a couple of times in root position. You can do as many octaves as you like, depending on what level you're at just now. But let's just take 2 octaves. So I'm going to start the lowest E and just go up and down 2 octaves. And I'm going to then take that and actually try and start going sort of sidestepping, if you like. So once I've got the real pattern of the scale, under my fingers, and of course we can practice all the modes from that. But I want to start building up a sort of repertoire of exercises, if you like violinists, if you're playing Sevchek or cellist Foyard. So, I mean, I'm thinking on the spot here. I haven't done any preparation for this, but this is hopefully can show you how you can have some fun with this. So, let's go and find our E again, and I'm going to go up in 3s and back down. Immediately I've made my own little exercise. So I'll do that slowly again, and you can write this down, but I'm sure you can all pick it up by ear. So if you go up 3 notes, down 1, up, and in fact, let's make a rhythm. Let's make it a dactylic rhythm. So a bit like in Brandenburg 3. Let's play. And then you can carry on doing this. I'm just going to show you many examples of this. So that's one of them. Now we've had a rhythm that goes yum, ba ba bum, ba ba bum, ba ba bum. Let's do a sort of triplet rhythm, because triplets are so important in this, particularly in this feel that we're playing in this groove. And we'll do a little bit of rhythm work in a minute, but I just want to if we just if that's our crotchet, bum 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 beam bum bum, let's do play a bit of Algar. I'm sort of joking, but you see what I mean. So that's how we can start mucking around with the rhythm in just a little exercise like that. And then why don't we go from, let's go for a sort of 4-note motive now. I mean, it's not rocket science at all. I'm just building up what in the jazz world they call chops, building up some chops. Okay, so we then do that with our D7 scale, exactly the same thing. Now I know you might be saying, well, hang on, it's from the same scale, so why do we have to do it starting on E and then starting on D? The point is, one of the sort of the goals of this with our improvisation is that you can show the change of harmony. So you're not just playing notes from G major, you're playing notes very much in the tonality of E minor, and then playing notes very much in the tonality of D7 and how they relate to each other. So we've done a little bit of work in a sort of linear way, building up passages of notes that are adjacent. One of the really important things as well is that we can play up and down arpeggios. So what I've been doing, for instance, in the harmony warm-ups applies very much here. So what I want you to do is just, whatever octave, play me the arpeggio of E minor 7th. So we're just taking from our roots, building up in thirds. So we've got our roots, our thirds, our fifths, and our 7th. Such a great, that is the quintessential Vaughan-Williams sound that is that permeates this piece and so much of his music. Now what I want to do, let's take that an octave lower. So, and by the way, open strings are cool. Never try and find a sort of complicated fingering, because complicated, there are many other things more important to focus on. So open strings are cool in this context. And so we're going to take our, now I'm then going to play the arpeggio starting on the 2nd degree. So in other words, the F sharp. You see how I find those notes? I'll just take you back one step. Here's our E Aeolian scale, notes of G major, but starting on E. I'm taking my arpeggio starting on E, but then the second degree starting on F sharp, then the third degree starting on G, A, B. Now the thing is, what I'm trying to show, I know I went too fast there, but the thing is, you'll find yourself having to suddenly adapt into fingering patterns that you might not have done before. So in other words, I was slightly stumped when I got here. The string players were always having to work where the hand is open, where it's extended, and maybe I've never quite practiced this configuration. Now, you don't even need to take it that high, but the thing is, by doing this, you're developing a sort of extra level of fluency out with a normal arpeggio and a normal scale. So let's just go over that again. We're going up the arpeggio, each degree. Now, even if you can't pick this up at this speed, as long as you can hear, I'm using as many open strings as I can, etc., etc. So then we can then add another note to that 4-note arpeggio, and this is what we call, in the jazz world, we call an extension. So instead of just going up E, G, B, D, I'm going to go up another third as well. So we're going to go E, G, B, D, F sharp. So let's just play that arpeggio together. It's a gorgeous sort of open sound. So now we're going to fit that to a sort of scale. So we then do the second degree. It's really making me think. And what you'll find is that you come up with really unconventional solutions in terms of fingering, which is great. Because we want to get out of that, as I say, that slightly confined world that we're in, where we're always thinking, and rightly so, in sort of blocks of positions. We're having to think outside the box here. So then after that one extension, why not add another? So we can go up all in thirds, using many open strings as you want. So the thing is, it's absolutely boundless, the possibilities, and it's for you to take these things and to just experiment, muck around with them. The more mucking around, the better, and the more that your fingers will be able to follow your sort of musical thought when you're improvising. Now, the last thing on that subject is that I would also try things in fourths. We as string players, because we play instruments tuned in fifths and we're used to playing a lot in thirds, we're not actually usually that very good at fourths. And if any cellists are watching, when you come to play the first Schoenberg Chamber Symphony, you will definitely have to be good at playing up in fourths. So this is where it's a bit like doing the sort of Rubik's Cube. You've really got to be thinking ahead. So I'm going to go up, I'm going to start on our E. Now, of course, I'll tell you what the note names are. E, A, D, G, C. Now we can't do a perfect fourth for the next one because it's an F sharp, so we'll have... That's high enough for me. So it's a very different sound straight away. I mean, jazz musicians like McCoy Tyner played things in fourths all the time, and we, as I said, we are just not used to doing that as string players. So let's do, this. We don't even need to go as far as that. Let's just keep it to around 2 octaves. And then next one. And next one. You can hear where this is going, and then you take it down to D. So we've done things in close position in terms of notes adjacent to one another. We've done things in thirds, and we've done things in fourths. And again, this can, honestly, all aspects of your playing will be developed by this in terms of fluency and in terms of just ease around the instrument. So the final element of this tutorial, I wanted to just do a little bit of rhythm work, developing something that's very specific to playing in compound time. So we're in 6/8, this sort of feel. And one of the great things we can do in terms of pulling against that rhythm is to employ playing 3 against 2. Now, it's something that you have to do often when we're playing Brahms, and often when, you can tell if somebody has that sort of rhythmic independence straight away, whether it's in a classical style or whether it's in a jazz style. So I'm going to try and help you develop this, realize this, and we're going to work further on this on the live session on Thursday. So I want you just to have there's our quaver pulse. It's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now just keep that in your head. You can tap your foot if you like. Tapping your foot in this kind of music is totally fine. And in fact, it's encouraged. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So keep that pulse in your head, and then with this hand, I want to tap 2 against that. So ba 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 ba. Okay. Let's put them together. So here's that. Ba, 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 ba. I know it looks easier than it actually is, but you get the hang of it. And then switch them around. And switch them back. Okay. That's something you can practice when you're doing your homeschooling and you're a little bit sort of, this is not so interesting, or practice your 3 against 2. I'm sure that never happens, but that's something I used to do at school. And then we can actually start practicing, if we've got a 2 against that, we can start going to 4. So eventually, what I want you to do is put the metronome on then. And what we've just been doing with our scales, if you've got the pulse going, ba, 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 practice your scale 2 against that 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, and 6. 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, and 6. Or but always against the metronome, so that we always retain the sort of the real pulse of the 6/8. Okay, so practice that. You've got, I don't know how many days until we see each other again on Thursday, but I hope you can all do some really good 3 against 2. And if you've got that, and that's water off a duck's back, then 4 against 3.